Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance so you can live the life you're meant to live. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we are going to talk about retraining your brain so you can live the life of your dreams. Let's dive in. Hey there, unicorn. It's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, we have Reg Malhotra. He's an internationally recognized mindset trainer who uses integrative psychological techniques to help all kinds of people to maximize their performance, regulate their emotions, and retrain the way they think and behave. So Reg is the founder and CEO of Neuro Academy, which is an educational program for high performers, leaders, coaches, therapists, counselors, and other health professionals from all around the world. So he helps people to learn neurolinguistics, hypnotherapy, so that they can employ them in their own practices. But he also helps everyday people to learn these practices as well. So Reg himself personally transformed his own life as well. He had a difficult childhood, lots of self-sabotage and unfulfilling early professional career experiences that have now led to him having this flourishing career. And you can just tell in speaking with him, he loves what he does. And that is why I asked him to come on the podcast, because a mentor of my own knows him and recommended him as somebody to check out. And then I saw him and I was like, this individual is living his calling, and I can see it and I can feel it. And so I wanted to have him come on the podcast to talk about what he does, why he cares so much about it, and what he can do to help us to really understand what are the things in our brains that are helping us stay stuck, that instead of helping us move forward, they're keeping us hooked into the past. So you're going to hear us talk a lot about how the things that we've experienced in the past are keeping us stuck in the present and keeping us from living the fulfilling, amazing dream life that we really know is calling to us. So it's a really cool conversation because we wrap up a lot of the things that have been talked about by so many people who've come on the podcast into one. And he talks a lot about our emotions and how feeling our emotions over and over, our past emotions in the present, can lead to us kind of spinning our wheels. So without further ado, I welcome on to the podcast, Reg. Hi, Reg.
Hi, Jen. How are you today?
So good. I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. Thank you for coming on to share. I know that we have a lot in common in terms of our goals and what we really hope for human beings in the world to get out there, improve their lives, and share their gifts and live the lives of their dreams. So I know that you've got so much goodness to share with everyone today, and appreciate that you've come on. So can we just kick off? Why do you care so much about this?
I love that question. Well, thank you for having me here. In terms of why do I care, there's always a story, right? There's always a personal story. And for me, like many people, Jen, story was full of adversities and lots of questions, right? Lots of unanswered questions. And many of us go through our lives, experiencing adversities. And, sometimes we may ask ourselves, why did this happen to me? Why me, right? What does this mean, and where is this going to lead me? And so there was a lot of those questions, and I went about my life not seeking the answers, but more so experiencing the after effects of the adversities. At some point, I came across information, ideas that suggested that no matter what's happened in your life, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've experienced, there are choices you can make that can completely alter the trajectory of your life. And that eventually led me to doing that work with myself. And then naturally, as you would know, many of us who work on ourselves, it becomes so compelling to then go out and share that with others. So that's a very high level explanation. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's incredible. So can you share, like, what is one of those huge moments for you where you had just an aha or just a realization? Did you have a strong negative belief or something that was really impacting your life? What was one of those like huge, because we all have those moments, when it's like, oh my gosh. For me, I'll share, it was, I inherently believe I'm bad. And I had this belief that came up in hypnotherapy, which I know is something that you have a strong belief in. So for you, I'm just curious on your journey. What was what was one of those big things for you?
For me, it was the realization that events from the past, and I mean not just minor events, but events, I like to call them as significant emotional events. These are events where you felt a very strong, generally negative emotion, or a cocktail of them all at the one time. And it was the realization that all of us have such events in our life, right? They're there in our history. But it was a realization that even though those events have happened, the past is gone, they're having a significant role in how I'm living life in the now. And that was even after I was a father and a husband. It was that deep realization that, oh my God, I am seeing life through what had happened. It was crystal clear to me that the way I was approaching life, all these stories, like you said, you had a belief. I call them stories, Jen. That I had these stories, and these stories were so strong. And I think realizing that these stories can be changed and you can have a new story. You might have heard the line, new story, new life. And then not only can we have a new story, we can continually create new stories. That idea, as you can see in my voice right now, excited me so much, that you can literally reinvent yourself at any stage, but it's going to require you to let go, both consciously and unconsciously, of the stories that we've carried.
Okay, so this could feel scary to people. And so I'm curious, would you work with people, that idea of letting go of the past, because we associate so firmly with our past. Our past is our present. It is us. So how do you help people to let go of the things of the past? And why should they anyway? Why is that something that we should let go of, those stories that we're telling ourselves?
Absolutely. I mean, when I say past, I mean, you're quite right, Jen. The past, is the fabric of who we are. In fact, there's modalities where you can actually delete memories, and we're not for that. I'm not for it. I don't believe in that. I think everything that you've experienced happened, for you to learn from, right? And at the risk of sounding cheesy, it's actually quite practical to be able to do that, right? You can learn, you can take a lesson, you've heard all these stories about people who use their adversities as their fuel, who use their disadvantages as their advantages. So when I say letting go of the past, I'm specifically referring to the meaning that we hold, the connection that we hold. And let me explain that with an example. Like, I used to have an event in the past that was in many ways horrific. But every time I thought of it, Jen, every time I thought of it, I could feel emotion in my body. In fact, sometimes I even had tears come out. That happens. We talk about something and we have these teary eyes, right? And you think, oh, that's how I connect to that part of my life. But in reality, that could be an indicator that that event is still living inside of you. Your mind thinks, every time you go back to that event, your mind thinks it's happening all over again. But that's very interesting. Initially, it can sound like a good thing. Oh, well, I'm feeling that emotion. But like I said, as I did this work, I realized that emotion and the way it was coming up was an indicator that a lot of my energy is being used to keep that event alive. But that's very significant, because if you're going to go out there and create a new life and create a future that you love, or create anything magical or significant or wonderful that as it is to you, you're going to need energy, right? You need motivation, you need energy, you need this compelling vision of the future. But if you have a bunch of events and as you think of them, you feel emotion, my interpretation of that, Jen, is that you are using energy in your nervous system to keep those events alive. You can certainly visit them, you can see them, but the question is, how do you feel inside of you when you visit the event. And that's what I mean by changing the meaning of the past or changing the story. Like I had events where every time I went there, I was sad. Now I can look at those events. I can literally look at them like a movie and know that it's part of my life, know that it's given me the lessons. And in a lot of cases, it's given me the strength.
What you said about putting the energy into keeping it alive. So we talk a lot in the manifestation community and, in the self-development community about energetic leaks. But the way that you describe this, it is an energetic leak, but you're describing it as that you are intentionally or maybe subconsciously putting fuel into this. It's not even just a leak, you're fueling it. So I really love the way that you describe that. It kind of flips it into a different way that just shows how we are using our energy for what we don't want. So how do people kind of flip that script? How do you stop putting the energy into that and put it instead into the magical things that you want to create?
So let me go back to that example. Firstly, the more you visit these past events and you feel that emotion, the more you strengthen the neurology around that, right? The neurology simply means, problems and events in our nervous system, they have a boundary. They develop a boundary. It's almost like they have a life of their own. So the more we visit them, the stronger they get. So firstly, we have to become aware as to how often and in what ways are we visiting them. Do we talk about it? Do we think about them a lot? Do we use that as reasons for our current life situations? Do we feel sorry for ourselves? All those are indicators that you are at some level visiting the event. So we got to become aware of that. And we got to be really honest, Jen. We got to be, 100% self-honest. Like, is this allowing me to, for example, stay safe from something, or is it allowing me to stay a victim? And I know these can be very scary concepts, but in reality, it's very simple. Is it allowing me to not do the things I want to do? We have a concept called secondary gain, where secondary gain?
I do. Yes, but please explain it because I don't think anyone's explained it on the podcast.
Secondary gain, I would say, is when the benefit of holding on to a story or a problem can be greater than the benefit of letting it go. I give you a very practical example. Say someone breaks their wrist at work, right? And their work involves them using their hands, say a chef. And they get on work cover, like work support. You get paid because you're injured at work. Now, research has shown that people who receive work cover, right, tend to end up spending a lot more time away from work, even though the problem should generally get solved a lot earlier. Now, what's happening there is, even though the person doesn't want that health problem, that ailment, people don't want it, Jen. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants a broken wrist for too long. But if at a deep unconscious level, there is a lot of benefit being attached to, now I don't have to go to work and I still get paid, I would say that the problem in itself in your body would continue longer, right? Because you have this benefit of holding on to it. Just like that, sometimes when we have these events from the past, they allow us to, for example, attract sympathy, attract love, attract attention, remain safe, not feel rejected, not feel hurt. All those can be types of secondary gains, which are not always very conscious, by the way. You almost need to probe and bring it out of a person, because even sometimes people are not aware of it themselves. So I'm not suggesting that people are always aware of it and they choose to. This can happen, again, at the lower than conscious level.
Yeah. So for example, maybe you tend to fight with your husband. Well, then at the end of that fight, you end up kind of making up, and then you end up feeling safe because he's kind of like swooping in and kind of saving you. So that would be kind of a normal everyday example maybe of secondary gain. How, even if somebody's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, maybe I actually did break my wrist and I got workman's comp and then I ended up, wow, my wrist is still hurting me. What is happening? Maybe at some deep, deep level, something happened with me, or maybe this is happening in my relationship. What can somebody do about this? Like, okay, I have awareness that maybe this might be something that might be stopping me in some way. What can somebody do about it?
What can someone do about a secondary gain?
Yeah,
Well,
or about anything that they realize. I guess we're specifically talking about secondary gains. So let's go there, and then we can go to like a bigger scope.
Yeah, no, I think I remember you earlier. You asked me the question as to what can someone do about it if they have these events from the past, and I think I got into talking about the idea that you ought to look at these events, right? You ought to look at this stuff and really understand if there is any benefit that you're getting by holding on to a story, right, that is disempowering you as opposed to empowering you. So the first part is, and in that process, if you notice, you have to be honest with yourself. You just literally need to ask yourself, could there be a level of benefit that we are getting from the stories we have? And if there is, I think the first part is acceptance. Yes, I am benefiting from this before you're going to change it, right? So I think the first thing I'm saying is just becoming aware and becoming conscious if there could be a benefit. And of course, it requires brutal self-honesty. You have to look at it. Where could the benefit be potentially?
And that's challenging, of course, right? To identify and be really, really honest with ourselves. That can take some work and can take a little bit of practice. But you kind of talk about some of these things, like it can shift so much faster than you think in some of what I have heard you share. So if you could share a little bit about that idea.
Yeah. So there are techniques. What I would say on that is there are methods, right, that you can disconnect, if you will, the emotion that is attached to a particular memory. And that's what I meant when I said letting go of the past. You're not changing your past. In fact, at some point, you want to be proud of where you are in spite of your past, right? Now, there are definitely methods that incorporate visualization techniques. Of course, a level of hypnosis can also be used. But the specific type of techniques that we use is called timeline or timeline therapy in general. It's a more advanced form of neurolinguistics where we're able to guide you to go before the event ever occurred. In your visualization, before the event ever occurred. And using that techniques, you don't have to go in the event. You don't have to relive the event. You don't have to strengthen the neurology. And so there are mechanical positions you take above what's called your timeline, which is your entire life. So it's a really cool process. It works really fast. And the end result is that you're able to rationalize the events or what happened at the events at the what commonly is known as the subconscious level. So your mind gets the message. And the biggest test of that is when you complete these techniques, you're able to go and recall that event from the past and feel neutral in your body. You see, the body never lies. The body never lies. If you want to know whether a past event is affecting you in such a way that it could be chewing up the energy that you need for the future, you have to test it. Think about an event. How does it make you feel in your body?
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody who's listening, they're like, okay, I do have a memory. Every time I talk about this thing, I cry. Every time I talk about this one, like just not shining as bright as others. And that time that my mom told me to pipe down so that my sister could stand up and do her performance, so like we all have these little moments in our lives. Are you saying, I'm just trying to kind of like whittle this back for somebody's understanding, that if you can go back to the moment before that happened and tell yourself that it's okay, or somehow shift the belief structure, it's actually before and not revisiting the memory itself? Is that right?
Correct. In a visualization sense, there are ways in which you can go before that event ever occurred. Then you rationalize it, get certain meanings from a specific position you take, right, in relation to the event, but it's not inside the event. Now, there's a lot of techniques like talk therapy, as you would know, where you talk about the events. And look, I'm not, bashing any industry or any other particular techniques, but however, for a lot of people, talking about an event over and over again can be very counterintuitive. So, there are techniques that you don't have to go in and relive the event, rationalize the event, and then, there's a position we use in that technique. In fact, it's called the neurological multidimensional opposite of now. Sorry for sounding so technical, but let me repeat
That's
that.
quite a phrase.
Neurological multidimensional opposite of now. Because in this position, you're before the event, you're looking towards now, where you are physically today present in reality. Now, this, how could I put it really kindly? It's a bit of a mind play. That's the only way I can put it. So,
Not the other four-letter word, play.
No. As you know, the mind is very interesting. Mind does not know the difference in real and imagine. Mind does not know the difference in real and imagine. If you could imagine something right now and you could feel fear in your body. So that means that we can direct our mind in certain directions. We can. In fact, one of the things that we love teaching people and we love helping people with is creating memories. Let me repeat that, creating future memories in the now. Because Jen, let me ask you one thing. What does a memory consist of? Let's think of the memory of the car. And car has pieces and engine and seats and metal, and really break it down. What would you say a memory consists of?
A memory consists of the things that I've seen in the past.
Okay, so it's got pictures.
Pictures, yeah. Pictures.
Right? Let's break it down to that level. Let's see what else you can tell me. So you got a memory. What is the mechanical parts of it? If you want to know.
There's pictures. There are feelings and sensations that I experienced. There are maybe smells, possibly, that I can remember.
Very good.
Textures, I suppose, if you break it down at like the super visceral level.
Right. There'd be pictures, sounds, feelings, smells, tastes. You could really break it down. Even then there's colors. Is it still? Is it moving? Is it big? Is it small? There's a lot of ways we can break it up. So if I said to you to create an image now, right? Add some sounds and feelings, just like a little recipe, right? Add some features to it and create it. But it's about something that hasn't happened yet. Say a goal, say a vision, say an idea, but you created it right down to the specific detail, right? And then you chose deliberately to associate feelings with it. If you have a chocolate cake tonight, and if I asked you to create a picture of the chocolate cake and you having the chocolate cake, the exact type you like, or a green smoothie, depending on who's listening to it, and I asked you to imagine having it in your favorite location and tasting it, imagining the taste right now in your favorite location, the right kind of juice you have or the cake, and would you feel, and I asked you to imagine feeling that now, it's very likely you'll be able to create a very specific occurrence of that in your mind. Now that begs the question, Jen, if a memory consists of all those pieces and you created one about the future, the brain does not really know whether it's happened or not, right?
Right. And there is a lot of research to back up exactly what you're saying as well. Yeah.
The brain may consider that it's happened. Now, I don't know how many of your listeners believe in ideas like law of attraction, manifestation, and all these amazing, cool things, which, by the way, I believe all of them are real. But you know what, Jen? I'm just one of those guys. I love the bigger picture idea of it, but I love to see the pieces of it. I love to break it down. And to me, absolutely law of attraction and manifestation is real. But you got to work with it almost like a scientist, like a mechanic, and do it in such a way that you turn your brain into your friend and you give directions to your brain. And this particular part I really like, as you know, I get so passionate about it. I'm talking about creating future memories in the now and then installing it into your vision in such a way that the brain thinks it's already happened. Because Jen, what happens if the brain thinks it's already happened?
What does happen?
It will bring to you, now it can sound a little bit woo-woo, but there's the risk of sounding woo-woo.
We're okay with the woo.
It will, good, great. It will bring to your attention people, situation, circumstances, and anything else that aligns with it. You see, if all of our attention is on the past, what happened, we notice more things that could remind us of that, because that's a model of the world. But if we continually populate our brain with what we want, with specific detail, right? You could be scrolling up Facebook or Instagram. Have you noticed that some things catch your attention and you stop? Because possibly that's aligned with what's already there in your neurological structure, what's already in your nervous system. So the message I have here, and I know we got here from talking about the past to the future, because ultimately, if you can use the past to create a compelling new feature, then we're doing great, right? So my ultimate message of that is that populating your mind with what it is you want in the right way and associating it with such a way that you can feel it in the now as it's occurred is a very powerful, proven way of accelerating or fast tracking your journey to where it is you want to go. But again, if you have stuff from the past, you do want resolution on it. Otherwise, it's like, trying to walk with a 50-pound Louis Vuitton bag hanging over your shoulder.
Thank you for connecting, because that was going to be my next question was, okay, and I'm a firm believer in feeling the future now, and it really is about the feeling. So it's really fun to hear you, and also just to see you light up so much about it. I can tell. I love having people on the podcast who come on and you're just like, I can tell you just love this stuff. And what you just linked was, okay, but you have to go back and make resolution with these things in the past, because otherwise you're just dragging that bag, and that Louis Vuitton is not meant to have 50 pounds on it. That's going to ruin the straps, and you spent way too much money on that Louis Vuitton. Thank you so much for sharing this. Okay, can you share, like, if there's anything that you just want people to know, like, based on everything, all the people that you've worked with, everything that you have taught, everything that you have learned in your own personal journey that you haven't shared today, that you just think, people just need to know how important this thing is, what would you share?
Other than the point about the past, one other thing I would say is that no matter where you want to go, no matter what you want to do, I think the sooner you realize that people that you know in your life now and that people you haven't even met are going to be critical in your journey. And the problem and the opportunity for human beings is that some of our greatest pains, greatest traumas, greatest negative experiences happen in association with other people, right? So we can limit our desire, intention, and ability to work with people towards reaching our goals and helping them reach their goals. So my greatest message is understand that people are different. They have different models of the world. They have different experiences. They have different things that are important to them. And if you can learn more about yourself and as a result, a lot more about how people think, how they operate, anything is possible. And I mean that tremendously, because you're going to have to deal with people. And I get it that people have bad experiences in the past. People, in fact, I've known so many people that come and learn with us who, as a result of a bad relationship, a bad marriage, or divorce, or whatever, a traumatic experience, have chosen to never be in a relationship again. When I ask them, would you like to be in a relationship if you could? The answer is overwhelmingly yes. Right? I just use that as an example that rather than limiting our experience of life, limiting our ideas of what other people, or running with limited ideas about what people are like, it's better to understand that people are different. Everybody has a story. I'm sure you would agree, Jen. Everybody has their own story. And not everybody is right for you. Not everybody is going to join your journey. But the more you can learn about why people do what they do, how they think, right? What is important to them in their world, you can achieve anything. Because if you're only trying to take people to where what is important to us, we missed a huge part of the equation. Like I can, in less than 5 minutes, I'll be aware of what is truly important to you, just through your language, for example. Now, that's very, very important for me. If I was doing a collaboration with you, if I was working with you, I'd want to know what's important to you, wouldn't I?
Yeah. And I will say for the listeners, when we very first got on this call, you had a lot of questions for me that is obviously something that you firmly believe in and you live by, is that really understanding other people and what's important to them. And it definitely influences how you're showing up in the world.
Correct. And as you work on yourself, as you grow, as you learn more, I also believe, and this is again going into the woo-woo side, the kind of people that come in your life continually change. I'm sure you experience that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I love your message that you just never know who the people are who are going to come into your life, and they're going to be so important on your journey. One last question, if I can just squeeze one more in, is because I ask every single interview that I do, Reg, where do you see the magic in the world?
I see the magic in people. I will start there again. I see the magic in people, and I see the magic in love.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Because ultimately, when it comes down to is we all want to be loved, and we all want to give love. And with everything that happens in our life, we limit these two areas. And I think if we can choose and accept this idea and approach life from this place, I think the results are always satisfactory, because how you start is how it ends. And that relates back, Jen, I'm sure you talk about it a lot, gratitude and all of that stuff. But I think going first, for example, knowing that, again, goes back to my point about people, right? Everybody wants to be appreciated. Everybody wants to feel loved. Everybody wants to feel recognized and accepted. And I think that's where the magic lies.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I mean, gratitude, appreciation, that all of those are feelings of love. And something that I talk about a lot with my clients is that we're either in fear or we're in love. And so why not choose the loving feelings? And something you might say is, why not choose the loving thoughts? I've seen how you're like, if you're going to be thinking thoughts anyway, why not choose the ones that make you feel good? So.
And that's why I feel so passionate about what's these significant emotional events in the past. This is not about fixing yourself. Ain't nobody broken. It's about expansion. It's about saying, hey, I can look at that stuff. I can get resolution on it so that I can be that person who presents love to people that are going to come into my life. You see, there's a lot of people we haven't even met who are going to love us yet. But we must let go of that Louis Vuitton bag so we can give love, but also we need to be able to accept love. I don't know. I don't know about you, Jen, but I find a lot of people are close to receiving.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the major challenges in this world right now, and there's lots of reasons that exists. And yeah, I'm 100% with you that you can only get as much as you're willing to receive yourself, and we don't give ourselves love. Like, it starts at that really base level of even just allowing yourself to love yourself. And one of those things, what you said about this isn't about like rejecting pieces of yourself. I can't remember how you worded that, but it's so important. It's that acceptance and judgment-free acceptance of exactly who you are. And that's really where the true change begins, because as long as we're trying to push pieces of ourselves away, that's not love. You can't receive from that point. So
No, we got to accept all parts of us, and this journey is ultimately about wholeness.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us. I truly appreciate it. And I know everyone's going to get so much out of this.
Thank you, Jen. I really enjoyed it.
I hope you got some great stuff out of this episode with Reg. Again, he's just such a delight, and you can tell that he really cares and is so passionate about the things that he is teaching people. And he has helped so many people using the techniques that he has. And in Thursday's thread, I'm really excited to dive into what he teaches and also what I teach as a breath worker and a mind-body connection coach, because they actually are incredibly complementary. I myself have done a lot of hypnotherapy. I've done some neurolinguistic programming. So I really abide by some of the things that he teaches, and also for some people, specifically the things that I teach and what that brings to the table in terms of helping us to move forward toward the things that we really desire to achieve. So definitely look forward to Thursday's thread, where we're going to dive into this just a little bit deeper. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, and I hope you enjoyed meeting Reg and hearing all of the things that he had to share. If there was something in this episode that really struck you, I would love to hear about it. You can take a little screenshot of this right here on your phone of the episode, share it on social media, share your biggest takeaway, share it with a friend. If you tag me at UntetheredJen on Instagram, I will absolutely always reshare your posts. You just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye.